Oh, hey there. Is it time to start the show? I just came back from birding, so let me put these down and let's get started. Hello and welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. My name is Megan Wynn, and I'm the Community Events Manager at POST, and I'll be your host for tonight. You're joining us for Feathers of a Forest, where we'll explore some of the incredible birds that depend on our local forest and the protected landscapes they call home. Whether you're an experienced birder or just someone who hears a bird outside and wonders, who is that? We're glad you're here. Tonight, we'll learn more about our local forest birds, the habitats they need to thrive, and some special places where you can go experience them for yourself. Tonight's event is interactive, so we'd love your participation. You can log into the YouTube chat to ask questions, and we'll answer as many as we can along the way and at the end as well. And while you're here, please consider subscribing to Post YouTube channel and dropping us a like so you don't miss future free programs like this one. And for the best viewing experience, click the full screen button below. Tonight's event is also being recorded and will be available afterwards. If you need live captions tonight, click the link in the YouTube chat or description to open them in a separate window. And if you're watching the recording, you can click the closed captions button on the video player. Please follow the community chat guidelines to foster a positive, inclusive environment. That means to be kind, no harmful speech, foster constructive discussions, no spam or self-promo, and we reserve the right to remove comments. And for those of you who are new to POST, we're a nonprofit land trust, and our mission is to protect open spaces on the peninsula and South Bay for the benefit of all. We are creating a network of protected lands where people and nature can thrive. And since 1977, POST has protected over 97,000 acres of land. And here's a short video about what we do.
Since our founding in 1977, POST and our partners have preserved the peninsula and South Bay's sweeping landscapes.
These are the places we know and love.
Places that wildlife call home.
Places we rely on for food, fresh air, clean water, and our health.
We're just getting started. POST protects nature because nature sustains us. Nature connects us all.
And guess what, y'all? We actually got to celebrate a really exciting example of our work this week. In 2017, POST protected 58 acres at Tonitas Creek Beach, just south of Half Moon Bay. We then partnered with San Mateo County Parks to restore the landscape and create safe public access. After nearly 9 years of conservation, restoration, and planning, Don Horsley County Park at Tonitas Creek Beach finally opened on Monday, August 17th. What was once privately owned land is now a public park where people can explore nearly a mile of beach. And while important habitat is protected for wildlife, including the threatened western snowy plover. It's a great example of a journey we see throughout POST work, to protect, to partner, and then ultimately transfer so people can publicly access the land. And this work is only made possible because of our generous donors and supporters and viewers like you. And if you're a POST donor tuning in tonight, thank you and congratulations, because your support helps make stories like this possible. And that brings us perfectly to tonight. The forest landscapes we'll explore have their own versions of this conservation story. POST help protect these places, partners care for them today, and now they're places you can go visit and go birding yourself. So tonight, you'll not only meet some incredible forest birds, you might also discover your next place to go looking for them. So before we continue, I want to take the time to acknowledge the POST work takes place on the ancestral lands of the Amamutsin, Muwekma Ohlone, Ramaytush Ohlone, Tamya Nation, and other indigenous communities who have cared for this land for generations since time immemorial and are still here with us today. We invite you to reflect on the land you are joining from and your role as stewards of these places. Thank you. Okay, with that being said, if you're new around here, this is how we do things. We're going to switch gears for a quick interactive activity because it's time to play the Feathers of a Forest trivia game. All right, folks, I hope you're ready to play our interactive trivia game. It requires your participation, and here's how this is going to work. You'll need to scan this code using your phone, or you can play in a separate browser. You can also just play along out loud, answer in the YouTube chat, or just read along as we go. And if you're watching the recording, feel free to skip on ahead. I'm going to give everybody a moment to log in, see how many participants we can get. I promise you, it's a fun way for you to learn, get along, and I'm seeing those numbers climb. You can join in at any time. So scan that code or use the join@menti.com using the code up above, 35614870. Remember, you can join in at any time, so we're going to keep this going. Okay, I see at least 100 of you joined, so let's see if we can keep going. First question. Where are you most likely to find a pileated woodpecker in California? Is it the coastal shrub and grasslands, chaparral and shrublands, mature forests with large trees, or open grasslands with scattered oaks? Go ahead and lock in those answers so we could see. Okay, I'm seeing those numbers climb. I'll wait till a few of you have put in your answers, and let's see how far we can get. All right. Don't forget, if you're just tuning in, you can join at any time and also type in the chat as well. Okay, here we go. The answer. Let's see what some of you guys have said. Okay, most of you have said a mature forest with large trees, and if you click that, you are correct. Mature forests with large trees, including redwood and mixed forest, is where you're going to find the pileated woodpeckers. These forests include conifer, hardwood, and mixed forests. And in California, they can be found in mature redwood and other forested landscapes, especially where large standing or fallen trees provide places to feed and nest. Good job, everybody. Let's see what we could do with question number 2. All right. Question number 2. Which California bird has a call commonly described as sounding like Chicago, Chicago? All right, let's see how many of you. Don't forget, if you're just joining us, you can join at menti.com using that code up above, 35614870. All right, I'm going to give y'all a few more moments to guess. Let's lock in those answers quickly, folks, so we can keep this game going. Because I'm so excited for you guys to meet our speaker. They are so knowledgeable about birds. I hope you all learned something new. Okay, here we go. The answer, let's see what most of you said. Okay, it's pretty split. We got most people saying California quail. Second answer is the spotted towhee. Some people think it's the Cellar jays and the dark-eyed junco. If you answered California quail, you are correct. Good job, people. The California quail's signature 3-syllable call sounds like Chicago. Quails use this call to stay connected with their group or mate, especially while moving. They also make a repeated pit-pit alarm call to warn others of danger. All right, good job, everybody. Let's keep it going. Question number 3. The Pacific wren is a tiny forest bird, and what is surprising about its song? Is it it's loud and complex for its size? It only sings while flying? It mimics a woodpecker drumming, or it only sings at night? What do you think is special about this tiny forest bird? And what is surprising? Go ahead and lock in those answers, and let's see what you all think. I'm going to wait a few more seconds to give you guys a chance to catch up. If you see that question, don't take on too much time. All right, let's see what most of you said. A lot of you said it's loud and complex for its size. If that's what you answered, you are correct. Good job, everybody. It can produce a remarkably loud, complex song for its size. Pacific wrens may be tiny, but they are impressively loud singers. Their songs are fast and complex, filled with high-pitched trills, buzzes, and whistles. And these energetic little birds even huddle together in nest boxes to stay warm when it gets cold. Good job, everybody. I think we have a lot of bird people in the chat, so this is good. All right, and if you're not a bird person, that's okay. I hope you're learning something new. All right, true or false? Acorn woodpeckers may have 12 or more adults working together to incubate eggs and feed the young in a single nest. True or false? Y'all got a 50-50 chance here. So let's log in those answers, see what you think, and let's see what most of you say. And I'm going to see the chat here. Oops, that's the wrong thing. Oh, no. Okay. No, we're still in it. We're still in it. Okay, here we go. Let me show you the answer. Most of you guessed true. So if you guessed true, you are correct. Acorn woodpeckers live in social groups where multiple adults help care for the same nest. I think that's pretty cool. What a cool way to show for community. Birds can teach us a lot. Okay, last question here. What is this species? Can you name it? Is it a white-breasted nuthatch, a brown creeper, a song sparrow, or a house finch? Name this species. What is it? All right, go ahead and lock in those answers. Let's see what you can get. If you're stuck, I'm gonna give you a hint because it's the last question. What color is it? Okay, that's your hint. All right, let's see what most of you said. If you guess, let's see what they said. A lot of you, it's in between white-breasted nuthatch or brown creeper. Oh, okay, I love how split this is. If you guess brown creeper, ding, 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 you got it correct. Looking like a piece of bark come to life, the brown creeper crawls up trunks of trees, ferreting out insect eggs and other morsels missed by more active birds. It is easily overlooked until its thin, reedy call gives it away. Creepers even place their nest against tree trunks tucked under loose slabs of bark, where they are very difficult to find. All right, everybody. Good job. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was great. I'm so proud of all of y'all. You guys got all the questions correct. And if that was all new to you, I hope you learned something. All right, let me get off the stage here and back to our regularly scheduled program. Do you guys like that? I hope you guys had fun. We like to do something interactive here at Post. But okay, before we bring our speaker up, I promise soon, I want to share a little bit of context. The birds we're talking about tonight do not exist in isolation. They depend on healthy forests for food, shelter, nesting, and raising their young. And protecting those habitats is a big part of Post's work. You're going to hear about several forest landscapes that Post has helped protect over the years, including Windy Hill, Rancho Cañada del Oro, Rancho San Vicente, Bear Creek Redwoods, and San Vicente Redwoods. And each has its own unique conservation story, but they share something pretty special. Today, these are protected lands that people can go visit and connect with nature themselves. And with that, I'm excited to introduce our speaker tonight. Carolyn Knight is the Education and Outreach Manager for the Santa Clara Valley Bird Alliance. She graduated from UC Davis with a degree in wildlife, fish, and conservation biology. And prior to joining SCVBA, she worked with the wood ducks in the Central Valley, where she officially became a bird nerd. Let's bring in Carolyn. Hey, Carolyn, welcome. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much, Megan.
Welcome to the show, and thanks for being here tonight. Before we dive into the great content you'll be sharing with us, how did you get into birding? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I was introduced to birding as an activity in high school. One of my buddies in my biology class was already into birding, and I got invited on the Christmas bird count, which is an annual community science effort where we go out in the worst possible weather, and we try and count all of the birds. And the real spark bird for me was this wonderful western bluebird. It was like somebody took a chunk out of the summer sky and just placed it on a tree branch. Meanwhile, we are like soaking wet and trying to like keep the donuts we had gotten dry. But it was just this spectacular sight of just a little bit of a rainbow right in the middle of downtown Sunnyvale.
Yes, I love how colorful birds are, and just the way you described it, I can see the passion, I can see the vision. What did you say earlier to me? You're calling them a rainbow what?
Oh yeah, the rainbow dinosaurs.
Rainbow dinosaurs, that's right, because birds are pretty ancient, right?
Absolutely ancient, and some of the species we're going to see today might have a little bit more of those prehistoric features than others.
Amazing. Well, we can't wait to hear. One more question. Can you tell us a little bit about what you'll talk about today? Give us a sneak peek.
Yeah. So one of the great things about getting into our forests is they are absolutely teeming with life. The downside to it is, there's a lot of places to hide in there. So today we're going to be meeting some of the birds that kind of create that soundscape, the soundtrack to all of our nice, cool summer hikes in our forests. And we're also going to learn a little bit about some of the birds whose behaviors actually shape the forest itself. You can think of them as kind of habitat architects, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I cannot wait to hear more about that. I'm sure our audience is waiting. So without further ado, a quick reminder, everybody, this is a live show, so we welcome your questions. Put it in the chat. I'm loving the energy already happening. You can ask your questions away. We'll bring them up as they're relevant and during the Q&A session. And also, if the chat is too distracting, you can minimize it. Don't worry. All right, let's get your slides up. Take it away, Carolyn.
Awesome. So welcome everyone to the forest. As I mentioned, tonight, we're going to be exploring some of the different forests. We're going to be taking a look at 2 different types of California forests. We're going to be learning about some of the birds whose songs give us that go-to nature playlist as we're enjoying our forests. We're going to go into the birds whose behaviors are going to actually shape our forests and dictate how these wonderful trees grow. And we're going to talk about some of the animals that might disturb that peace we're seeking. So to start us off, let's talk about oak woodlands. Our oak trees are amazing organisms. And this is not a plant talk, but I cannot talk about these forests without mentioning how the oaks in California really are keystone species. Whether we're talking about valley oaks, coast live oaks, blue oaks, or any of the other half dozen oak species you can find in our local forests, they're supporting thousands of different species. And so we get these really incredibly diverse ecosystems built up around them. And the cool thing about our oak woodlands here in California is you can kind of think of them as a liminal space as we transition from the oak savanna habitat that fills areas like the Central Valley and Coyote Valley. And as we then go into higher elevations, into our hills and our mountains, where we then get into our older forests that are less disturbed. So some really good places to explore this. One of my favorite places to go to for oak woodland burning is the Windy Hill Open Space Preserve. It's a great preserve right up on Skyline. And this is actually an incredibly, it's a pretty old piece of post-preserved property. So it was protected back in 1981, originally as a 537-acre post project, and it's currently managed by Midpen. It's got some really wonderful hills, and this is a wonderful, absolutely wonderful spot if you are looking for those oak-specific species. And we do have a number of birds that are only going to be showing up in our areas with lots of oaks. I did see a question about the liminal spaces. So a liminal space is like a transition, right? So when we're talking liminal spaces, our oak woodlands is a transition between the oak savannas, those rolling grass hills with the scattered stands of oak trees. And then as it transitions more into the undisturbed old growth forest that we have up in our mountains. Wonderful. So Windy Hill, awesome place. We're going to be talking about some of the birds that can be found there this evening. And another place that we actually, Santa Clara Valley Bird Alliance, just got to explore with POST this past weekend, Rancho Cañada del Oro. This is a more recent piece of protected land, came under POST's protection back in 2009. Or I apologize, back in 1999. I got my dates mixed up. And it was originally about a 2,500 acreage protection. This is absolutely gorgeous land. When I think of the quintessential Californian habitat, it's basically Rancho Cañada del Oro. Going further up into elevation, more into the Santa Cruz Mountains, we get our old growth redwoods. These are our forests that haven't really been logged in large part because of just how difficult the terrain is. But this is where we really get into that dense forest, where the trees are older than the country and will probably continue to last far longer, where we're talking about trees that are taller than some of the buildings in our cities. And so as you walk into this space, you're kind of exploring an entirely new realm. Some of the great places to explore this, right off of 17, we've got the Bear Creek Redwoods Open Space Preserve. This is an area that's currently managed by Midpen, but it was purchased back in 1999 and was originally just over 1,000 acres. Today, it's closer to 1,500 acres. Really lovely spot. In fact, we're actually going to see a clip of some of the trails of this preserve today. So you can get a little bit of a feel for some of the habitat as we go through this. And we also have the San Vicente Redwoods. So like the name implies, pretty close to Rancho San Vicente. But this is the Redwoods once again. I grew up camping in the redwoods surrounding this preserve. This is a really awesome place to get really deep into the forest and kind of forget that you're surrounded by the cities. When you get that deep into the forest, you're a little bit out of the flight paths of cars, you're far enough away from the freeways. And so you really get the opportunity to just kind of soak in the quiet. And then part of getting out into nature is realizing, of course, how very little quiet there actually is. So let's hit the trail. So this is Bear Creek Redwoods. And what I want to point out to y'all here is not only do we have redwoods, but we've also got laurel trees. There's manzanitas in here. We've got not just these towering ancient trees that are creating habitat, we've also got a lot of shrubs, shorter vegetation, lots of ground cover. So when we're walking into our forest, there's a lot of opportunities for our birds to be hiding. They don't generally want to draw a ton of attention to themselves. So for their survival strategy, they're going to be a little bit hard to spot, which is kind of our focus today. So let's go into the soundscapes. I do want to say this is not going to be an exhaustive list of all of the birds that you can find in these woods. That would be a way longer presentation. We're not going to get into quite that detail, but tonight, my hope is to introduce you to some of the birds that are going to be kind of your constant companions. So you can pick them out and then focus in on the sounds that are a little bit more unfamiliar with, a little bit more unfamiliar with you. So the first bird I want to introduce you to is our little chestnut-backed chickadee. This is a tiny little insect eater. And when I say tiny, smaller than a tennis ball. It is wee. These guys are absolutely ferocious insect eaters, although you can occasionally get them coming to your bird feeder if you feed the birds in your yards. These little guys hide their nests in holes dug by woodpeckers. And this presentation has actually given me a wonderful opportunity to do like my second favorite thing, which is to find adorable descriptions of birds in ancient field guides. So in The Birds of California, published in 1904, the author Irene Grosvenor-Wheelock described the chestnut-backed chickadee as hanging head downward over a slender twig, searching for bugs under the young leaves, swinging in a happy-go-lucky fashion from tip of a branch, scampering in flocks through the tall trees. He is a most fascinating little chap. And I think that sums up this little bird pretty well. This is the call we hear. They say their name is really cute. And it turns out the number of Ds they say actually correlates to how alarmed they are. So when they see something big and scary, whether that is a bobcat, a mountain lion, or just like some inconsiderate hikers, they're gonna start calling to let all of the other birds in the neighborhood know that there might be something dangerous to avoid. These little guys are absolutely fearless. And a fun thing with them, because they are going to be hiding their nests in little holes, I just wanted to show you what a natural cavity looks like. So this is dug into the side of a cottonwood tree. This is a little chestnut-backed chickadee nest. That hole is a little over an inch across. So you can imagine if you're in the middle of a forest, these nests are almost completely invisible. And it is a really effective survival strategy for these little guys. So these parent chickadees are zipping back and forth. They're pulling dirty nesting material out of their nest, right? You got to clean the baby's diapers as they mess them. And this nesting strategy is actually totally dependent on the existence of some of the ecological architects we're going to talk about later. Here's a couple more views of our chestnut-backed chickadees. Like I said, absolutely adorable little guys. They're very well named. They've got that chestnut back. The picture to the left-hand side is actually a look inside of a nest box. So these little guys, cavity nesters, they will take up in nest boxes, and they make these adorable, very soft lined nests built out of moss and shredded redwood bark. Chestnut-backed chickadees absolutely adore redwoods. And so if I'm in Bear Creek, these guys are going to be one of the first birds I hear as soon as I get out into the parking lot. Their chatter is kind of constant for our forests. And yes, in the chat, the nests are very soft, although sometimes they line them with really smelly fur. Unfortunately, they do occasionally find skunk fur to line their super soft, cozy nests with. Now, if we want to dispel our identification error earlier, this guy here is the white-breasted nuthatch. They get the name nuthatch because they absolutely hammer away at seeds and nuts with their beaks. They'll wedge that hard-to-crack nut or seed into the grooves of the bark of a tree, and then they just whack at it with their wonderful beaks. In The Birds of California, published in 1927 by Dawson, they describe this bird's behavior with a pretty wonderful description of how they treat trees. So a tree is a complete gymnasium in itself, and the bird is master of it all. In all positions, any side up, the bird is there, fearless, confident. In fact, he rather prefers traveling head downward, especially on the main trunk route. And that's super, super accurate for these little guys. They are almost always upside down. And they have this really lovely kind of quack, 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 quack. This is a call that cuts through the sound of the wind moving through the trees and the rustle of the leaves really well. And while the white-breasted nuthatch tends to stick just to our oak woodlands, we do have other species of nuthatches, the pygmy and the red-breasted, that prefer our more coniferous trees, the Douglas firs, and the redwoods of our old-growth forests. So these are absolutely wonderful birds. I absolutely adore them. And they're another one that'll actually take up in holes in trees. So here's some more views of these cute little guys. The way they are hunting is they are inching their ways up and down tree trunks and tree branches. They're going after insects. So this is a bird that's actually really important for the health of our forests. They're feeding on a bunch of those insects that would otherwise be munching on all of the trees and the bushes and the undergrowth. These guys are awesome pest control. And they're going to be eating everything from small beetles, ants. They absolutely adore caterpillars, but they're a really fun little guy. And they are just, I think they're one of my favorites to find in the forest. This is the white-breasted nuthatch, named for that nut hatching behavior. And of course, its white breast.
Hey, Carolyn, we had a question in the chat, and maybe it's related to how they find insects, but a viewer asked, let's see, they asked, do birds have a sense of smell?
Yes. So birds do have a sense of smell. For most birds, it's no more developed than yours or mine is. They're not super smellers. There are a couple of species of birds that have really well-developed olfactory senses. Things like turkey vultures, they actually are looking for their food, the carrion, roadkill, leftover mountain lion meals, things like that. They find it with their sense of smell, which is super handy when you're flying over really thick California forests, right? You might not be able to see that dead deer, but you're definitely going to be able to smell it. Most of the birds we're talking about today, not really much in the way of smell. Let's see.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have one more question that just came in. Do nuthatches have unique leg structure to allow them to run downwards on the tree trunks?
Yeah.
Gymnasium.
Yeah. So these little guys have a little bit of a specialization in their back toe. So they, like most of our pretty much all of our songbirds, have 4 toes. The first 3 are up front, and then there's one in the back that you can think of kind of like a thumb that helps them perch on. The great thing about the nuthatch's feet in particular is it's got a really, really long back toenail, which allows the bird to basically just hook on. And so whenever it's going headfirst down to the tree, it just needs to latch those toes on, and they're just hanging there. And it doesn't really take any sort of muscle power for them to do that. Yeah.
Cool. Super cool. Thanks. Keep going.
Now, when we're talking about our wrens, there's a ton of different species of wrens all over our different habitats. The northern house wren loves our oaks. They love all of the holes in trees that are dug by the woodpeckers, and they are absolutely ravenous insect hunters. These little guys, like the Pacific wren Meg mentioned earlier, more voice than bird. These guys are super, super tiny. A wren is going to fit happily in your coffee cup, although it's going to be very sad that it's in your coffee cup. Absolutely adorable little guys. Overall, they're going to be brown with kind of a palish gray beak. And they've got a very skinny beak that they're going to be using to pry all of those bugs out of the nooks and crannies. In the Birds of California, Dawson describes the northern house wren, now renamed the northern house wren. It used to just be the house wren, but he got a new name last year. He is bursting with energy, and music escapes from his busy mandibles like steam from a safety valve. So let's take a listen to that song. Tiny little bird. And the challenge with wrens is they have these incredibly complicated songs. And a song is a longer display. This is more of the wren scolding. This is another very common sound. Yeah, I have to agree with the chat. Wrens have always had too much caffeine. That's just their way of existing. These little guys are so cute, though. This in the right-hand side of your screen with our wren perched out on the branch, this is a really common pose for wrens. If you're hearing those noises, this is the posture you're going to want to look for. Wrens carry their tails tilted straight up into the air, and it tends to bounce a little bit. So these guys are going to be quite active. When you are singing and making that much noise, you're going to be puffing out your feathers. Your body's practically vibrating with the sound that you're making. So these little guys, if you're hearing a really complicated song, take a look around. Could be at the top of bushes. It could be on a broken tree branch, but they do like to be able to display a little bit as they sing. Another great characteristic with our wrens, doesn't matter if we're talking house wrens, Pacific wrens, Buick's wrens, they've got these fabulously striped feathers. And it's a detail that you don't really get to see unless you've managed to capture a good photo of the bird, or it's being incredibly cooperative because they are so tiny, but just this wonderful detailing of striped feathers. Now, this is not a bird that hides. The common raven is North America's largest songbird. They're about the same size as a red-tailed hawk. But this guy here is pretty much a quintessential part of any of California's forests, whether we're talking oak woodlands down in Coyote Valley, or if we are going to the redwoods, you're probably going to hear ravens. They tend to be more solitary or living in pairs rather than the large family flocks that we see our crows gathering in. But these guys are generalists. They're going to feed on a wide variety of food, and that includes carrion, eggs that they steal from other birds' nests. They do have quite a reputation for that. And because they're so large, sometimes they are actually a little bit more active predators, and they have been seen to like grab and eat things like lizards. So that's super fun. Dawson describes them as quick-witted, cunning, and audacious. This foul of sinister aspect has been invested by peoples in all ages with a mysterious and semi-sacred character. And this definitely holds true. We've got Norse mythology featuring the ravens. We have a bunch of creation mythology here in North America with the different Native American tribes featuring the raven as a kind of beneficent trickster character. These are birds that capture imagination. And I want to play their call for you because while I know there's a lot of talk about how do we tell ravens and crows apart, the voice is pretty helpful. It's croaky. It's deep, it's gravelly, it's raspy. They're throwing some purrs in there. And ravens are corvids. They're clever birds. They're pretty much the cleverest bird we've got around here. And they do occasionally branch out into vocalizations. Best time of year to hear weird noises from the corvids is going to be in the spring. They learn how to chatter like this. Really great places to find ravens. I've had great luck with finding them at Rancho Cañada del Oro. Basically, as soon as you're out of your car, there's ravens hanging out. I've gotten them in Rancho San Vicente, as well as the San Vicente redwoods. So really good bird to be able to recognize, at least by voice. And they're so much fun to watch. They move so easily through the air. They're incredible birds when it comes to their flight. They can twist and turn. And they're just kind of a spectacular bird because they are so massive. Another good look, if you're trying to figure out if you're looking at a raven or a crow, look for this wedge-shaped tail as they're in flight. A crow, by comparison, is going to have a really smooth, almost like a pie-shaped tail, whereas the raven sports a wedge. And then also take a look at the feathers around this bird's throat. They tend to be quite long and fluffy. The ravens, in addition to being larger than crows, tend to look a little bit shaggier. The crows that we have around here are very sleek critters. And our ravens do prefer our open spaces. You're more likely to encounter the ravens in our open space preserves than in the cities. Continuing with our corvid theme, the California scrub jay. So if you've been hiking, you've heard these guys. They are clever, they are social, they are so noisy. The California scrub jay prefers the open woodlands of our oaks and the valley floor. So this is going to be a bird you see more in the valley rather than up in the hills. And in the familiar birds of the Stanford campus, published in 1954, Price says, if you disturb the bird in this act being the caching of acorns, and examine the buried acorn, the jay returns as soon as you have gone away, digs up its treasure, and bears it away to a safer hiding place. So even back in the 50s, we were recognizing that these jays could recognize that other animals had thought processes. So when they hide their food, they're also going to look around and see if there's another bird that's watching. And if there is, they think to themselves, oh no, that's not a safe hiding space. I'm going to go away for now, and then I'm going to come back and move it somewhere else. And this behavior does tend to spread oak trees around. So as much as these birds are part of the soundtrack and the soundscape of our forests, they're actively planting more trees. They are related to blue jays. They're of the same family. The blue jays are an East Coast specialty, though we don't get them here in California. But our other jay,
Scrub jay, coastal form.
Very sharp, screechy voice. Kind of piercing, not super pretty. I gotta say, I kind of prefer our raven call. These guys, like the other corvids, are gonna go after easy meals. Bird eggs from other nests are definitely gonna be on the menu. Something that actually protects other birds from the predation by jays and crows and even ravens is actually larger patches of protected habitat. Our jays and our ravens really excel at finding food on the edges of habitats. So the smaller our forests become, the more edge there is and the more chances they have of taking advantage of a poorly hidden nest.
Real quickly, Carolyn, we got some questions in the chat here. If you could, we got some bird beginners. So Andy asked, what are corvids and why do they have a special group? And we also have a viewer asking, what's the difference between a raven and a crow?
Yeah, great questions, both of them. So corvids are a family of birds. Our birds are divided into smaller groups that share characteristics. These days, our families are defined by genetics. We used to just do it by the appearance of birds, which gets very incorrect very quickly. But our corvids are our jays, our crows, our ravens, and our magpies. These are really social, super clever birds with proven track records for problem solving. They are really, really fascinating birds to do behavioral studies on. Birds like crows and ravens, we found out they recognize human faces. They communicate grudges to each other, and they can hold those grudges for years at a time. So they're a fun bird to explore. And the difference between our crows and our ravens, they are two separate species. So they look very similar and they do kind of fulfill the same ecological role as generalists and large generalists at that. The ravens really does excel in those wilder spaces, whereas the crow, a little bit better adapted to the tighter spaces of our urban environments.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah. Here's a couple more looks at that scrub jay with acorns in mouth. They can fit like up to 3 acorns in their mouths. It just starts going into their crop. But it gets a little wild to see them starting to kick those off. This is an absolutely gorgeous bird. That blue is really going to catch your eye. So this is one of the birds that's actually going to be relatively easy for us to spot. And if we're going further into the forest, getting out of more of that open oak woodland and getting more into the old growth forest, we'll start encountering the Steller's jay. If you've been camping in the California woods, this is your alarm clock. They're keeping to the redwoods, old growth forests, and the hills. These guys are excellent mimics. They can reproduce the sounds of other birds, including hawks, mimicking squirrels, dogs, even mechanical devices like chainsaws. They are pretty incredible, and they're absolutely gorgeous birds. I know the blue jay gets, it gets hyped up. I gotta say, the Steller's jay is prettier. Very familiar sound for us. They always wake up too early. Yeah. And I want to show you a couple different pictures of this bird because that in-flight shot is absolutely spectacular, seeing all that blue on their wings. But they got these cute little crests. And in the lower corner here, this is what a juvenile looks like. So we're just coming out of baby bird season. These guys are wonderful parents. They are going to keep their babies with them for quite a while. They're going to be teaching their babies all of the safe places to find food. And they're going to be very, very protective of them. At this time of the year, right now, our Jay babies are learning how to mimic a bunch of different birds. My office is at McClellan Ranch. It's right up against Rancho San Antonio, if you're looking for some more oak woodlands to explore. But the Stellar's jays right now are actually practicing their hawk calls, and it sounds like we've got some very anemic red-shouldered hawks hanging out in the trees with them. But they're absolute cuties, and just a really fun bird. So let's get a little bit into who's going to shape the forests. These are going to be birds whose behavior alters the environment around them for their own benefit, as well as the benefit of other organisms around them. I do see a question in the chat that's kind of interesting. What's the purpose of the jay's mimicry? We don't know. There are some theories that they'll use it to warn other birds, but I've also seen Stellar's jays mimic the hawk calls to clear off the bird feeders for their own benefit. One of the cool things with corvids is they actually play. So we have documentation that they will engage in play behaviors. So there's a decent chance that there is some actual learning that's going on with all of this mimicry. Wonderful. So getting into our shaping the forest. The first bird might be a little bit surprising. This is the band-tailed pigeon, and I'm going to play its call for you. You're not going to be surprised by what it sounds like. Got that rough cooing noise. And then they've got this little growl call. It's kind of a display vocalization. Kind of more of that soft coo. Now, the reason I bring up the band-tailed pigeon, it is our native pigeon. The pigeons we get in our cities are rock pigeons. They are introduced from Eurasia back when Europeans were originally settling the Americas. They were brought here for food, basically. The band-tailed pigeons, however, are California natives. They adore our oaks. These are birds that are going to be feeding on mast. They're going to be feeding on the hard growth of our forests, things like acorns, manzanita fruits, lots of berries. And by feeding on these things, they're dispersing their seeds across the landscape. This is incredibly important for all of these plants. Oak trees will actually release tannins into the ground that makes it harder for other trees and other plants to grow around them. The further their acorns can spread, the more the forest can actually spread and grow. Oh, I see some people have been slapped by a pigeon. I have as well. I don't recommend it. I also want to mention the band-tailed pigeon because, like, these guys are built like sprinters. We tend to think of pigeons as just kind of soft and they don't have a lot of things going on. They were seen coming like rockets through the air down the side of the mountain, are startling to the ear as well as to the eye, resembles this roar of escaping steam. While many of us haven't been privy to a flock of band-tailed pigeons flying over us, we probably have walked through a flock of pigeons in a parking lot. The band-tailed pigeon's about twice the size of the rock pigeon. So just imagine how much more noise it's going to make. And these guys are built for speed. They can fly up to 60 miles per hour, just an incredible species. And they're pretty glorious in flight. So you can see those really strong chest muscles propelling the bird through the air. They do like to hang out in flocks, but I do want to note The other pigeon that North America is famous for is, of course, our extinct passenger pigeon. And that's a species that was really well known for its massive, millions, literally millions of birds, large flocks. The band-tailed pigeon tends to hang out in smaller groups. We had sightings of them down at Rancho Cañada del Oro this weekend. We get them also in Windy Hill quite frequently. They love the oaks there, as well as the manzanitas. And you'll also find them flying around the oak trees of Rancho San Vicente. These guys are not particularly migratory, although some pigeon species are. And these are the pigeons that were never domesticated. So these are 100% wild, and they are super, super pretty birds. Now, another bird that's going to be shaping our forest through seed dispersals are spotted towhee. This little sparrow, well, not such a little sparrow, super shy, but very vocal. This is the bird that's going to be scolding you the entire time you are hiking the trail. You're going to want to look for these guys in the undergrowth at the tops of bushes in the spring where they're going to be singing from. But this is a bird wearing Giants colors. So once you know where to look for them, you're probably going to start spotting them. Dawson describes the towhee, or the towhee's environment. To really get Master Towhee's point of view, one must be willing to creep on hands and knees among the bristling stems of mountain lilac and chamis of a southern mesa, or else belly-wise through the footage and cast-off duffel of a northern forest. In this case, we're in the northern forest duffel. But these little guys are going to be scratching around at the ground and feeding on berries of things like the manzanitas. Elderberries are a really popular one for this one. And if you've ever wondered how poison oak gets everywhere on our trail systems, it's this guy. This is the scolding. And this is the song. It's such a pretty little song. So they just find a nice high perch and they open up their beaks. This is a photo I took of a spotted towhee singing. So they just find a really nice outcropping of tree branches or the top of a bush, and they'll just yell. Here's some more looks at them. These guys also are going to be feeding on our insects. So they're doing some pest control for the plants as well, making sure that the insects don't eat every single leaf off the tree. But they are also going to, as I mentioned, be spreading berries through their feces. Another great thing that this bird does, and you might notice our spotted towhee holding the caterpillar has super long toenails. And the way they hunt for food is they actually use these toenails to scrape up the surface of the ground, flipping over the leaves and the sticks that kind of settle on the forest floor and hide insects. So they're constantly turning that over, increasing the oxygen to the soil, and also picking out all of those wonderful bugs that are hiding there too. Now, into our classic ecosystem engineers, our woodpeckers. Can't talk about altering the landscape without talking about woodpeckers. The pileated woodpecker is the largest, definitely extant species of woodpeckers. There's always some debate about the ivory-billed woodpecker, but the pileated woodpecker is definitely alive and is dwelling in our old-growth forests. If you want to find a pileated woodpecker, Miss Irene Grosvenor-Wheelock from the Birds of California, published in 1904, has a little bit of advice for you. The handsome pileated woodpecker may be frequently heard, occasionally seen, but never watched unless you are going to live in his haunts months at a time for the special purpose of making friends with him. They're shy, and they like to be in the dense old-growth forest that requires you hike a little bit. I do find these birds pretty frequently in the Bear Creek redwoods. As the field guide mentions, though, you're going to hear these birds more than you see them. So let's take a listen. This is this drumming. This is a territorial display. They'll beat their beak against a hollow log or tree. And this is the call. Now, ivory-billed woodpeckers are going to be shaping their surroundings very, very directly. This is not, I'm going to have a snack and then poop in a place, and then a decade later, there will be a new elderberry tree. This is direct action. I am going to change the tree. So we're going to watch a pileated woodpecker go at a tree, and then we're going to take a look at some of the damage they can do. So I do want to mention, this is a massive woodpecker. It's about the size of a crow. You can see it prodding around. Our woodpeckers actually have a kind of unique foot configuration. Rather than having 3 toes in front and then 1 in the back, like we saw with our nuthatch, they have 2 toes in front and then 2 toes in back. And this allows them to flip themselves upside down and come at trees from different angles, as we can see this pileated woodpecker doing now. So they'll find a likely spot and just chip away at the bark. And then speed it up just a little bit. You can see that long tongue that does, in fact, loop around the back of their skull. So we speed this up just a little bit because it's a long process. The fun thing with the pileated woodpeckers is most of our woodpeckers, when they're drilling a hole, they're very content to just make it a very small hole that they then sneak their long beak into. The pileated woodpecker goes for destruction. So this is a pileated woodpecker creating a nesting habitat. You can see just the wood chips going flying out. And the great thing about our woodpeckers is every year they're creating new nesting holes. So they're not just going to reuse old ones, they're going to make new ones. And the old holes can then be used by birds like the white-breasted nuthatch, some of the shrapnel from the construction. Chestnut-backed chickadees will also make use of woodpecker holes. So these guys are what we call primary cavity nesters, and that cavity creating activity is really going to be what supports many of our birds. So here's a closer look of the oval, really deep holes that are typical for our pileated woodpeckers. And these holes are like 6-8 inches into the tree. They're absolutely massive.
Hey, Carolyn, we are getting close to 8 o'clock, which there's so much bird nerd energy in the chat here. I know we can keep going, and if folks got to drop, no worries, the recording will be sent, but just want to be mindful of time. We can make some time for questions, but yeah, let's speed on through if you can.
Sounds good. All right, so if you're going into our oak woodlands, the acorn woodpecker is going to be your best friend. They are super gregarious, super social, absolutely require oaks. And they actually used to be called the California woodpecker, which is kind of a terrible name for them because they're found all the way south down into Mexico. But super good bird to know if you're going to be doing any hiking in California. Here's a look at one of their granary trees. So rather than making the gigantic holes that the pileatids do, acorn woodpeckers will find a dead tree and they will riddle it with holes. You can hear a little bit about that vocalization, call. It kind of sounds like they're laughing at you. That's okay though. It's a supportive laughter. But they'll fill each and every one of these holes with acorns, and which they then defend. They don't want the jays, whether they're scrub or Steller's jays, to sneak in and grab their food. And those social groups that Megan mentioned earlier are going to help sustain the flock. So these granaries are incredibly important resources for these birds. Pretty common to find, especially if you're in like Rancho San Vicente. You can find a ton of their granary trees. Here's a close-up look. One feeding a baby And then a closer look at those acorn holes. And they really just make it just big enough to fit the acorn. They don't want it to be easy pickings for the jays to come in and just pluck them out. Now,
we have a question in the chat real quick.
yeah.
Does making all these holes kill the tree? And why do they make so many?
Yeah, that's a great question. Typically with our woodpeckers, they are going to be picking trees that are already in the process of dying. They're looking for trees that already have a lot of food in them. So if a tree has food for woodpeckers, that's going to be in the form of like grubs and beetles underneath the bark of it. That is not a healthy tree. So oftentimes they do sometimes get the reputation for killing the tree. The tree was already on its way out. With that said, though, sometimes you will see them kind of hastening things along if it is a really busy tree. All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's two species here that are actually going to kind of disturb the silence here. If you go out into any of our open spaces, you will know that silence is pretty rare. There's always going to be a lizard rustling through the underbrush. There's always going to be the wind blowing through the trees. Noise is part of nature. The deer are not trying to walk super quietly while they try to move through the trees. But there are some animals that can create silence and whose presence and the silence they bring with them can be a really exciting moment. First bird is the sharp-shinned hawk. This little guy is about the size of a mourning dove, super tiny little hawk. And he's a hunter specializing in other birds. This is going to be your most common view of them from it staring down at you way up in a tree. This is an absolutely lovely little hawk. He is the boldest fellow for his inches that wears feathers. Certainly he is the most destructive desperado without fear and without mercy. I really love all of the floral language that our old style field guides use. You really do get a sense of personality of the birds. And you also get an interesting look on how society or societal changes kind of affect how we interpret these birds, right? The sharp-shinned hawk is a predator and it's going to hunt other birds. Doesn't sound very exciting, right? He's squeaky, but this is a bird that absolutely strikes terror in the hearts of all of our chickadees, our nuthatches. Even the woodpeckers will go quiet when these guys fly around, because if you are drawing attention to yourself and a sharp-shinned hawk is in the neighborhood, you are on the menu. They are incredibly talented hunters. They will go after prey that is of size of them, and they will in fact chase their prey into the bushes. These hawks are built for moving through tight spaces. They've got short short wings, and a long tail, which means they can twist and kind of fold themselves as they move through tree branches. And these guys are a big cause of why a forest is going to go suddenly quiet. The other raptor that's going to disturb our soundscape is the northern pygmy owl. I want to play its call for you. It sounds a little bit like a little train whistle. It's thinking about it. This little owl is about the size of my coffee mug. Not the smallest owl of California, but absolutely tiny. They love our old growth forests. That's where they're going to be. And interestingly, they're a daytime hunter. They don't have all of those adaptations that our nighttime owls have, the silent flight, the asymmetrical ears. This guy's going to be hunting after prey, mostly songbirds, in the daytime. And this little sparrow-sized owl can definitely be found in our forests. Dawson describes the pygmy owl. In spite of his insignificant size, the pygmy is a dashing little brigand, and no bird up to the size of a robin is safe from its clutches. I'm going to go one up over Dawson. These little dudes hunt quail. They are super intense little hunters, and they look absolutely adorable. This little illustration is of a northern pygmy owl with a dark-eyed junco, which is another one of our common forest sparrows. So this little guy, if your forest suddenly goes quiet, or if there's suddenly a lot of activity from multiple birds, from jays, from hummingbirds, from chickadees, odds are good you've found at least one of our owls, if not one of our northern pygmy owls. Yeah, they do look super grumpy, don't they? And they're just so tiny, so tiny. Absolutely ferocious hunters, though. So I want to invite you, the next time you are looking for an outdoor adventure, get out into the forest. It's going to be cool. Literally, it's, the temperature is cooler underneath those trees. But also, there is an amazing amount of life that you can discover. And all it really takes in order to find it is a little bit of patience and a willingness to let yourself be quiet for a little bit. And you'll start hearing the birds as they come out around you. I also want to say, come birding with us. Santa Clara Valley Bird Alliance does a ton of field trips. We usually do about 15 to 20 every month, but we're also really excited to be birding with POST. So every month we are going birding with POST. I'm going to be one of the leaders for those. So if you want to go birding with me, it's a super fun event. It's a great crew of people. We will introduce you to all of the birds you're seeing. You'll learn about the local ecosystems, as well as the really important work of land conservation and protection that organizations like POST do, because these animals wouldn't exist without these spaces. So the work that groups like POST does to protect these spaces, this is absolutely vital to the continued existence of these awesome species. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. I hope you learned something. I really hope that you've come away with maybe a greater appreciation of some of your local birds, or maybe you can recognize some of your common sightings on the trails. But thank you all so much for your time, for joining us tonight. I wanted to open things up for questions, although I am aware we're a little over time.
Wow, good job, Carolyn. Chat, can we give some love to Carolyn, our wonderful speaker tonight? Thank you so much for all the bird facts, and thank you, chat, for staying here. Let's take a few more moments for questions. I want to make sure our engaged bird nerds in the chat here get their questions answered. So go ahead and type in the chat. I'm going to get to some questions that people submitted before. Question number 1, what are birds communicating, and when do when they sing or call? And let's see if we can speed through them, Carolyn.
Yeah. So when birds are singing, it's a longer, more complex vocalization. They usually are going to save that for when they're trying to attract a mate. So it tends to be pretty seasonal. We're going to hear it in spring, early summer. The calls are shorter vocalizations, chirps and things like that, something that's going to carry. Those are going to be what they're going to use to communicate. Things like danger, or I've found food, or even sometimes they're just like, they're checking in, like, I'm still here, haven't been eaten by a hawk. So it can vary. And definitely different species have a way different variety of noises and what they can mean.
Yeah. What advice do you have for someone just getting started with birding? And what are some top things everyday people can do to support native Bay Area birds?
Yeah. If you want to get started birding, I really recommend checking out the birds that are around you. You don't have to go far to find birds. They're all in your cities. They're in your neighborhoods. If you start with the ones that you see every day, and I seriously mean, like, pay attention to the pigeons, pay attention to the crows, try and figure out, like, why do I know that bird is a crow and not something else? And you'll start kind of recognizing shared characteristics that carry through families. Like, you can be like, oh, the jays kind of have the same sort of beak and voice as those crows. Or all of our little brown sparrows are hopping around on the ground, and they are different species, but they look super similar, and they're all doing the same sorts of things. And that's a really great base to then build from as you go further afield. If you want to support birds and other wildlife. Supporting the protection of open spaces is absolutely massive. A lot of these animals are going to be relying on our larger open spaces for at least part of their life. And honestly, one of the best things you can do is plant native. Bring some of that forest, some of that, native meadow or oak savanna into your home. It doesn't mean you have to totally replace your lawn. It could just be, I planted a couple of monkey flower bushes for the hummingbirds to come to. So it doesn't have to be a whole rip out the whole thing and start anew. It can just be little changes at a time.
Yeah, for sure. That's great advice. Are there any books that you recommend for beginner birders and any poetic field guides you particularly recommend?
I am really enjoying The Birds of California by Irene Grosvenor-Willock. Published in 1904. This is a super fun one because it is actually written by a woman. So in addition to all of her fun stories of like finding the birds, she's also got little bits of advice of like, if you're going for burrowing owls, you're going to be laying in a grass field. Make sure you tuck in your petticoats so the lizards don't crawl up your skirts. It's just super delightful little pieces in there.
Practical advice, though.
Yeah.
We have a very passionate person who wants to know how can we help purple martins and where do they nest?
Yeah, purple martins on the West Coast are a little bit tricky. The East Coast populations are a little bit more amenable to moving into nest boxes. So like the East Coast purple martins, they're totally happy to set up in nest boxes that people make for them. The ones on the West Coast don't seem to be quite as happy with that. We do have purple martin populations in the Central Valley as well as up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. One of the issues with supporting their populations, though, is because they are cavity nesting birds. They compete for the same size cavities that European starlings can get access to. So we can't exclude the starlings out of the nest boxes we do install without also excluding the purple martins. So they're limited to super kind of isolated areas. There is work, I believe MidPenn and actually part of Caltrans is working to kind of support these populations. But definitely it's something to keep an eye on over the next couple of years.
Thank you. We have a question here from 8-year-old Yuna. Are there any birding clubs for kids? And we also have a viewer asking about local Santa Clara Valley birding spots.
Yeah, awesome question, Yuna. We have a young birders club that is actually perfect for kids. They lead about 2 to 3 field trips every month. You can find them on our event calendar. They are actually designed and led by a crew of young birders. So some of those field trip leaders are in elementary, middle, and high school. But it's a really fun experience. I've gotten to go birding with them a number of times. They're awesome birders. They're super excited to share their knowledge. And they just have a really fun time. So I definitely recommend checking out our Young Birders Club field trips.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Carolyn. It was really special to just hear all your knowledge, see your photos, hear all the bird calls, and just thank you to our live audience for sticking with us and joining. And if you enjoyed tonight's program, one of the easiest ways you can support POST is to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, and it helps more people discover programs like this. So you'll be the first to know when we share about new webinars and videos. And a special thanks to our POST donors. It's truly because of your generosity that this work is possible. And if you haven't joined our donor community yet, we hope you'll consider being part of this work with us, because together we're protecting wildlife, clean air and water, and helping more people connect with nature and go birding in these beautiful places, because this work takes all of us, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. And tonight, if this inspired you to get outside, we're going to drop more resources in the chat. We'll email you all this. All right, Carolyn, before we say goodbye, any last words you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I just want to really encourage you to get outside. We are in the middle of a hub of amazing biodiversity. We are super lucky with all of the different habitats that we can explore with just a short drive. Let yourself go for a wander. Get a little bit lost on the trails. Not really lost. Don't really get lost, but spend some time just being outdoors in nature. I think you're going to be surprised by how many different wild animals that we have sharing space with us. Yeah, take a little time, step away.
Thank you. And then, where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me and the Santa Clara Valley Bird Alliance at scvbirdalliance.org. We're also on socials at SCV Bird Alliance. Our work is to get people outdoors and enjoying nature. So we are very excited to have you join us for a couple field trips. And if you're free this weekend, we've got field trips.
Perfect. Well, Carolyn, let's take a picture before we say goodbye. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. I'll take a screenshot of that. Chat, give Carolyn one more last time a thank you, kind words. Carolyn, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye, Carolyn. But chat, don't go anywhere. I have a few more announcements. If you like this event, you want more post events, come to Representation Matters Film Festival happening next month, Saturday, September 26th. It's both in person and online if you want to stream on demand. But if you come in person, there's free pizza, there's film, watching the community, and it's going to be a fun time. There's community partners. It's a great time. If you also want to come to any of our walks, hikes, other volunteer work days, get involved and go birding with us and Carolyn, you can sign up on our events page at openspacetrust.org/events to learn more. We also publish a bunch of free field guides. So if you want to know where to go hiking on the coast, or if you have a dog, and you want to check that out, check out our field guides as well. And follow us on social media so you learn about the latest news, just like we announced the Tenias Creek Beach opening and our latest events. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And for those of you asking, this will be recorded. It's being recorded right now, and it will be available immediately after the stream ends at the same link that you're watching right now, and we will email you all tomorrow. And last but not least, hey, did you like tonight's event? Let us know. Please fill out this survey. It'll help us ensure that we bring you quality program every single time. Maybe suggest what did we do well? What could we have done differently? Do we want Carolyn back for maybe a series, Feathers of the Baylands, Feathers of the Coast? Let us know. We won't know unless you tell us. So please consider filling out the survey either using your phone, clicking the link in the chat, or visiting the website as you can see here. Again, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our partners, our donors that make all of this work possible. My name is Megan Nguyen. It's been a pleasure to be your host for tonight. Thank you so much, Carolyn. We hope to see you next month at Representation Matters, or if you go birding with us, or our next online event. Until then, good night, be safe, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Fill out that survey.